Hello and welcome to Buon Cibo. Today I want to talk a little bit about how we shouldn't waste things. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make an amazing meat sauce that I'm later going to use to assemble a lasagna with out of some things that may have gotten discarded at some point in time. So what I have here is, this was a pot roast that I made, I don't know, several days ago. And obviously it didn't all get eaten, so it's put in the refrigerator. So what I'm going to do with this is got carrots, onions, peppers, the meat, some fat, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting this in the food processor. I'm going to chop it up a little bit, and then I'm going to add this to the sauce. So basically what it's going to do is take all this flavor that was slow cooked in this pot roast, and it's going to add it to the sauce. I'm going to start out first though. I have these Italian sausage, and this is going to be what I'm going to start. And these are in a casing. I bought these in a casing because they were on sale, and I just can't resist getting a good deal on something. So I'm just going to remove the casings, and then I'm going to break them up. And I have a pan heating on the back here. It has just a little bit of lard in it. Yes, I did say lard. And then I'm going to be adding the sausage to that, and I'm going to be breaking it up with a wooden spoon and get it started. And then I'm going to go ahead and grind up this pot roast, and I'm going to add that to the sausage once the sausage has gotten started. And then I'm going to put tomato sauce over all of it. I'm just going to let it cook down. So casings are removed. Get rid of these casings. And so now I'm just going to break this up a little bit, just pinching it into smaller pieces with my hands. And I'm just going to go, I've already started preheating this pan. I did put, I would say, maybe a tablespoon of lard in there. I think the lard is something that you shouldn't be afraid of. I use it when I'm cooking all the time, and I think it gets a bad rap for not being good for you. I think fat's good for you. I think just like everything else, it needs to be in moderation, but your body actually can't function without fat in your diet. So, and I get plenty of that, trust me. So this looks about right. Just go ahead and drop it in here. I'm going to let this start to render a little bit. I have a wooden spoon in here. Break it up a little bit with a wooden spoon. And now, here we go. So there is a really large piece of fat on here. And true to nature, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it in there. And I'm going to cube this up a little bit. It actually looks pretty good. You can see it. Nice marbling in it. I'm just cubing it up a little bit because I want it to not struggle when I'm grinding it. So this is already pretty small. And then I'm just going to put all of this in here. It's the carrots, the onions, the peppers. I'm going to push in there, drop this over here. And then I'm going to pop the lid on this, give it a little spin, a couple of pulses actually. Got it. That looks pretty good. See, that looks perfect. It's off. I'm gonna keep allowing my sausage to render. I'll add that to there for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and continue working on this sauce. All right, so the sausage is browning nicely, and I have a bottle of red wine here. It's a bottle of Chianti that a friend of mine brought, and we didn't drink it. We used one glass out of it, right? So I'm going to use that. I'm going to pour this into the sausage. And use it to deglaze the pan. I'm sure this wine's been sitting around here long enough that it's not drinkable now, but it's going to make a nice addition to the sauce and add some nice flavor to it. It's also going to help pick up all those brown bits in the bottom of the pan that really make. So you're going to take your spoon, really work those brown bits off the bottom of the pan. I'm just going to let that wine cook out. This is the meat that I had ground up earlier. You see that it's got some nice chunks of the vegetable in there. It's just a few quick pulses was all it really took to get it to this point. And once that wine cooks out of there, just enough to get the alcohol out of it, you're going to add this to the pan with the sausage. As soon as you can no longer smell the alcohol, that means it's ready. And so I'm going to go ahead and start dropping this in there. Just put the dollops of it. By adding that wine to this also, it adds a little bit of liquid to it, and it helps keep this from burning as well. Excuse me. So I'm just going to mix that in with the sausage nicely. Just cook a minute or two. And here I have a little bit of tomato sauce that I had made probably a couple of months ago and jarred, or canned, I guess the term is. I'm going to add that to this meat mixture, and I'm just going to let it slowly cook. Probably for about an hour or so on a very low heat. I don't want it to I'll let it come up to a simmer, but then I'm going to kind of reduce it down to a lower heat where I can just sort of cook slowly and absorb all the flavors of the meats that I put in there. So, give this another quick mix. And I'm going to go ahead and add this tomato to it. A good stir. And then I'm just going to throw a dash of oregano in there. I like the flavor of oregano, especially in a sauce. And I'm going to be using dried oregano, which I use quite often. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this heat down. This is already starting to bubble quite a bit. The last thing I want is for it to burn on the bottom of the pan. Oregano added. And we'll give a mix. And then I'm going to reduce this heat down all the way as low as I can get the stove to go. And I'm going to just let that cook away probably for about an hour. And then we'll come back and start working on the ricotta cheese for the lasagna. And we'll go from there. Okay, so here I have a couple of pounds of ricotta cheese. And here I've used a small grater because I wanted this is Parmigiano. I wanted it to be ground up really fine because I'm going to mix it in with the ricotta. So I just run it through there like that. So I've already done that, so I'm not going to bore you with watching me do that. And you can tell if you have real Parmesan cheese because this in the rind of the cheese there's going to be a stamp that tells you that it's real Parmesan cheese and where it came from. So, and let me tell you, there's a big difference between that and any domestic or especially that kind of Parmesan cheese that people use that comes out of a green can. I'm not going to name the brand, but I definitely would not recommend using that. So I'm going to add a little salt to this. Not too much because it's already going to add quite a bit of salt from the cheeses. And some black pepper. And a pinch of nutmeg, which I apologize, I forgot to take out. And nutmeg is going to just go right straight with this thing. And this is fresh nutmeg, not ground or out of a can. And this does have a much stronger flavor than nutmeg that's already been ground up. So you don't need a lot of it. That's probably enough of that. Put back in there. And then this is some chopped up parsley. And the Parmesan. I think I'm going to go ahead and try to mix this up a little bit before. Put a little start on it. And we'll start adding this in. Mix all this in really well. And I'm going to add an egg to it because the egg is going to bind it a bit to keep it from falling apart once it's inside the lasagna. And that's all you really need to put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish mixing this up. And I'm going to just let it sit for a while until the sauce is ready. And then when I come back, when the sauce is good and ready, we're going to start assembling the lasagna. So we'll see you in about an hour or so. So the sauce is finished cooking. The cheese is over here, all mixed together with the Parmesan, the parsley, salt, pepper, the egg, and the nutmeg. And then I have some additional tomato sauce here. And then my amazing meat sauce that's basically made out of leftover pot roast. So I'm going to start assembling this lasagna now. I have the noodles over here, and I actually had made these noodles a while ago and ended up not using them. I was doing a catering and I got a little carried away and made a lot more than I needed. And then I decided to use a disposable pan because, quite honestly, I'm feeling a little bit lazy today, and I really don't want to have to struggle with washing this pan when it's all done. And I find that these work really well. I actually buy them 2 at a time when I do a lasagna, and I set the lasagna in one, and then I put a little bit of water in the bottom of the other one, put the lasagna on top of it, and it kind of helps to keep it from overcooking on the bottom. It works quite well. So I like to start off by just putting a nice layer of tomato sauce in the bottom of the pan, and that's what's going to help to keep the lasagna from sticking to the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to take my first layer of noodle, and I'm going to start off by just spreading some of this cheese mixture out on this noodle. And I do this before I put it in the pan because I find that it's easier to spread it more evenly. If you put it in the pan and then you try to do it, it kind of slides around all over the place and doesn't work very well. So I find this works much better for me, being able to have it on a hard surface like this cutting board for being able to spread it so that it spreads nice and evenly without sliding around all over the place in the pan. And I'm going to put this layer down first. Looks pretty good. So I'm just going to pick this up and drop it in the pan. And that's going to be my first layer. And then I have a little bit of grated mozzarella, Asiago, Parmigiano, Fontina. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of that on top of it. And then I'm going to put my next noodle down. I have these separated with sheets of plastic to keep them from sticking together. That. And now I'm just going to start putting this sauce, this meat sauce, on top of this next layer. And this, I wish you could smell this because it smells so good. I actually snuck a little taste of it earlier, and you know, using that leftover roast to make this really heighten the flavor. Worked out quite nicely. I'm proud of myself. So now I'm going to just sprinkle a little bit more of this cheese mixture over the top of this. And I'm going to put a little more of this in this layer than I did in the previous layer. It'll help to bind that together a little bit. Now, I'm just going to continue layering this back to this. Again, I'm going to do it actually on here, on the cutting board, so that I can spread it without it sliding around all over the place in the pan and making a huge mess. I apologize, it's a little bit dark in here, but you know, I live in Seattle, and you know, if you know anything about Seattle, you know that it rains almost all of the time, especially this time of year. And so it was raining today, of course, and so it was rather dark outside, which made it rather dark in here. So, I'm just going to lay that down in there. And do another little light sprinkle of this. And I'm going to put my next layer of pasta dough. When I had done this catering, I don't know what I was thinking. I made way too much food for it, and so I ended up having a lot of stuff left over. But I guess why we have freezers. So I ended up freezing it, and I am using it now. Actually, it must have gone really crazy because I still have a lot of it left, and I may use it later to make some kind of ravioli or some kind of filled pasta with. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with it yet. But we'll see. Alright, so that's my next layer of my meat sauce. And then again, I'm going to go a little bit heavier with this. That's my next layer. Do one more layer of ricotta. I don't know why, whenever I work with ricotta cheese. I always think that it doesn't look like very much, and then I end up with too much with that too. Let's start there. But this time I think I might have done okay. So that might be just good. Spreading that out. This works so much better for me to do it like this than trying to do it in a pan. So hopefully you'll try it the next time you make a lasagna, and you'll see that hopefully it will work better for you as well. Can't tell you how long I made lasagna without doing it like this until I finally got smart enough to figure out that this would be a much easier way to do it. So I guess that's how we learn. We learn by doing. I think I probably knew this at one time. Pretty sure probably my mom or my grandma probably showed me how to do this like this, but you know, you kind of forget things, or you don't pay attention, and then later on you think, gosh, I wish I could remember how they did that. There we go. Put that one in there. And we're going to put one more. There's noodle. Pasta there, and pushing this down. And so, you know, like I said, don't be afraid of the fat, because I'm not actually going to cook this today. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, and I'm going to let it sit in there overnight at minimum, maybe 2 days, but actually tomorrow's Sunday, so probably overnight. So it'll be Sunday dinner. And it does a couple of things. One, it lets all the flavors absorb through the sauce. And the other is that it helps the lasagna to set up so that when you cut it later, it doesn't fall apart on you or just turn into a pile of mush. I always find that the longer that it sits, the better it holds up when it comes time to actually cut it. And I like my lasagna when it's cut to look like a cake. I don't want it to sort of fall apart all over the plate. So I prefer doing it like this. So one more layer of that pasta on top. And then I'm going to finish this top off with sauce. And this is just plain tomato sauce. It's the same sauce that I had put in to when I was making the meat sauce. It's the exact same sauce. So I'm going to put this, cover the top of this with it. And then I'm going to sprinkle some cheese over the top of this. And then I am going to sit this in the refrigerator where I'm going to let it set up at least for 1 day before I cook it, which this time will probably most likely be, say, Saturday, tomorrow, Sunday. I'll probably be eating this tomorrow, so it'll just be 1 day today. And I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of this on top of there. Perfect. Just drop this in the sink. Grab a little paper towel. Pull this up here. Yeah. Clean up the edges of it a little bit. Now, I can guarantee you that when I bake this, that it's going to overflow a little bit, even though it's going to settle down some. You can see the pan's really full. But when I bake it, I'll take a baking sheet and I'll cover it with foil, and then I'll sit this on top of it so that when it does overflow, which I'm certain it will, it's not going to make the oven dirty. It's the foil pan that's going to catch it. And I will cover this with foil for probably the first 30 minutes or so of baking, so that it doesn't burn on the top. And then I'm going to add some shredded not Parmesan, but rather mozzarella on top of this for about the last 30 minutes or so. And then I'll take that foil off and I'll let it finish cooking that way. But for now, I'm just going to cover this with plastic wrap, and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. I'm going to let it set up, and tomorrow we'll have Sunday dinner.